Ladies and gentlemen, this is a perfect time to make sure all cell phones are turned off for the service.
Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey. From childhood to maturity and youth to age, from innocence to awareness and ignorance to knowing, from foolishness to discretion and then perhaps to wisdom. From weakness to strength or strength to weakness and often back again. From health to sickness and back we pray to health again. From offense to forgiveness and loneliness to love, from joy to gratitude, from pain to compassion, grief to understanding, and fear to faith, from defeat to defeat to defeat. Until, looking backwards or ahead, we see that victory lies not in some high place along the way, but in having made this journey stage by stage, a sacred pilgrimage. Birth is a beginning and death a destination, and life is a journey, a sacred pilgrimage to life everlasting. My name is Rabbi Emily Hyatt, and it is my very sad but beautiful honor to be here with all of you today as we do this really hard thing and say goodbye to Shayna Wolf. I don't think we're supposed to be here. It's too early, too soon. She was not supposed to be gone from us yet. And yet, here we are. And so we are together in remembering her and in doing this hard work of laying her to rest. There are a few parts of a Jewish funeral, and I want to tell you a little bit about what we're going to do together today so that you know what to expect. Before I do that, I want to say thank you to all of you for wearing your masks. It allows us to gather safely and comfortably here today. I know it is uncomfortable to cry in a mask. So we're all going to do our best to leave our masks over our noses and mouths while we're inside together. And I am so grateful to you for that, so that we can do this as a community and as a group together. Now, the first thing that we do when we come to a Jewish funeral is prepare ourselves through poems and songs to do this hard work of saying goodbye. The second thing that we do is tell the story of a life that we cannot tell until it is over. And so we have this horrible and terrible and beautiful opportunity now to look back on Shayna's life and see what it is that we have to learn from her and from the beauty and the kindness and the compassion that she brought to this world while she was in it. And then the final thing that we do, which we will do in 2 stages, is to lay her physical self to rest, to bury her, to make sure that she is peacefully and comfortably in a safe space where she will stay. And so we begin this morning with a psalm, and I couldn't help but choose Psalm 121 to share with you. I'll read it in English first, because I think for Shayna, this is a psalm we often say at funerals, and yet for Shayna, it makes perfect sense. And it says, a song for ascents. I turn my eyes to the mountains. From where will my help come? My help comes from God, maker of heaven and earth. God will not let your foot give way. Your guardian will not slumber. You see, the guardian of Israel neither slumbers nor sleeps. God is your protector, your protection at your right hand. By day the sun will not strike you, nor the moon by night. Adonai, God, will guard you from all harm. God will guard your life. God will guard your going and your coming now and forever. And I understand that Shayna really loved the mountain. And so I will share with you just one more reading that puts us in a space of readiness for this hard work of telling the story of her life. This is a poem called I'm Standing Upon the Seashore. I'm standing upon the seashore, a ship at my side spreads her white sails to the moving breeze and starts for the blue ocean. She is an object of beauty and strength. I stand and watch her until at length she hangs like a speck of white cloud, just where the sea and sky come to mingle with each other. And then someone at my side says, she's gone. Gone where? Just gone from my sight, that's all. She is just as large in mast and hull and spar as she was when she left my side, and she is just as able to bear her load of living freight to her destined port. Her diminished size is in me, not in her. And just at the moment where someone says, she's gone, there are other eyes that are watching her coming, and other voices that are ready to take up a glad shout, here she comes. And that is dying. Death comes in its own time and in its own way. And it is as unique for the individual experiencing it as it is for those watching. And now we share Psalm 121, thinking of the sky and the sea and the mountains and the beauty of this world that we have that hopefully brought much comfort to Shayna while she was alive. Shir lema'alot esa einai el ha'arim me'ayin yavo Ezri me'im Adonai oseh shamayim va'aretz al yiten lamut raglecha al yanu shomrecha Yine lo yanu v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha Yomam hashemesh lo yikeka ve'areach balayla. Adonai yishmarcha mikol ra, yishmor et nafshecha. Adonai yishmor tzeitecha uvoecha, ve'ata ve'ad olam. And so with that, we move into the part of our service in which we have the opportunity to hear from those who loved Shayna and Shayna loved very much, who are going to share with us their words of memory and of her legacy and tell us her story. And so I'm going to begin by calling up Shayna's father, David.
How is a parent supposed to do this?
How is a parent supposed to do a job and bear their child? It doesn't seem natural or real, but the fact is, we're all here to try and make sense of this surreal moment. Everyone in this chapel and those watching on Zoom are at a loss for an explanation. We all have our ups and downs, our anguish and joy, our self-doubt, our anger, and our stubbornness. Of course, Shayna had her ups and downs as well, but she would never let you know it. Dr. Elizabeth Kubler-Ross was a psychiatrist who wrote of death and dying. She developed 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance to help us deal with the loss of a loved one. Everyone mourns differently, and there's no right or wrong way. All of these stages sometimes come in waves when we least expect them. What helps me accept this loss of our Shayna is by focusing on her character trait. Her sincere kindness, her humility, her trust in people, her generosity, not just in gifts to others, but always showing up for others in need, and for sure persistent. If she wanted something, she would be unrelenting. What an example to all who knew her, how much she wanted to become a real estate agent, and she persisted until she achieved her goal. She would go above and beyond, not just for her clients, her friends, or actually anybody in need who she came in contact with, many times at her own expense. We all received hundreds of text messages, emails, and calls that have all the same common theme of what a special soul Shayna was and had, and I know for certain she still has. How she has touched people with her giving nature and unconditional love to find the essence of who she was. Shayna was a board certified people whisperer. Excuse me. Shayna and I shared a special bond. True, I was her papa. However, she had a special bond with everyone she came into contact with. All of you listening know exactly what I mean. Shayna had the amazing ability to find the good in everyone. Ever since she was a little girl, she would go out of her way to make everyone feel welcome and accepted. It didn't matter if one child wasn't popular or just a little bit different. She strived to make them feel included, which especially in a child speaks volumes about her compassion and about who she was as a human being. She had a gift to light up a room whenever she was in it. Her positivity, smile, and enthusiasm spread to those around her as her loyalty and friendship was confirmed over and over from everyone that knew her. She would literally go to the end of the earth for anyone in need. She would keep in contact with everyone from childhood, school, and work. My mother, of blessed memory, always had a special relationship with her, even though from a long distance. When her grandmother Margie was in her declining years, it was Shayna who was always the first one she would call if she needed anything. She also had an affinity for seniors. She felt their pain and isolation. Shayna was the most devoted aunt to her nieces and nephews, Josh, Maddie, Ava, and Zach, going to every recital, sport event, or school program at the expense of her own. Her sisters, Stephanie, Serena, and Alex, knew who to call for anything at any time. She was also a surrogate parent to the Buster, the dog when needed. Everyone in this room knew how beautiful Shayna was inside and out. At a very young age, her nephew Josh really got to the core of her true essence by saying, everyone needs an Aunt Shayna in their life. Everyone who knew her was so blessed to have had Shayna in their life. I will miss her frequent phone calls, always beginning with "what you doing?" or always getting back to me within a few minutes if she was talking with a client. For making sure I always had kosher foods at family dinners, as well as for making sure we didn't miss our Zoom Shabbat call. The prayer that we will recite at the burial site this morning at Mount Nebo is a memorial prayer. The that ask God to shelter Shayna's soul on the wings of his divine presence. I believe with perfect faith that Shayna is in the bubble we have always wanted her to cover her with. I know in my soul that Shayna is with all our departed family in heaven, smiling down on us with her magnetic smile and asking, how you doing? Oh God, full of compassion, thou dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence. Walk the holy and pure who shine in the brightness of the heavens. Countering death, says the psalmist, helps us understand our fleeting place in existence. We are like a dream at daybreak. In the morning, we are like grass growing green and fresh. In the evening, we are cut down and decay. Our days are speedily gone and we fly away. Comforting that truth should make us realize the urgency of using the gift of our lives with wisdom. Shayna's death will be this gift for all of us, this awareness of how finite and fragile our lives are. Rabbi Nachman of Bratslav said, there is nothing as whole as a broken heart. With Shayna's death, of course, our hearts are broken, but made whole by her memory of the sweetest, kindest, selfless angel who graced our lives. Our relationship to Shayna will continue, our responsibilities to her increased by being an example that she set by unconditionally loving the neighbor as herself. In her case, she loved everyone more than herself. We can perform acts of love and kindness in her memory. Set her example of our lives with whatever physical or emotional limitations we were born by, learning how to compensate and smile and be grateful for our blessings. By understanding and emulating Shayna's short life, we will elevate her soul, declaring that her death will not be in vain. Leonard Cohen, a songwriter, poet, and author, said, there's a crack in everything. That's how the light is it. Shayna's light was her beautiful smile. That's why we named her Shayna, which is beautiful or lovely. Shayna Meadle, our lovely girl. There is a saying, you are only as happy as your saddest child. True, she was our saddest child, but Shayna was also our gift from God. With her radiant youth, her beautiful soul will finally be in peace with all those loved ones whose perfect souls preceded her. When I see our blessed new grandson Grayson smile, I see Shayna's smile. When I feel the mezuzah on my chest that Shayna brought me from Israel, I feel Shayna's presence near my heart. When I read all the texts and emails of how much Shayna's unadulterated kindness meant to them, makes me realize that her life had real meaning. The legacy that Shayna leaves to all of us is how to overcome and compensate for personal adversity through kindness and selflessness. She also taught us you can accomplish the impossible if you want it bad enough through persistence. What is so striking is not how many years were in her life, but how much her life was in years. I had an epiphany the other day, feeling Shayna's presence by her whispering in my ear saying, don't worry, Papa, you ain't seen nothing yet. I'm always going to be there for you, and I'm saving you to see. We all love you unconditionally, my dear Shayna. You can finally sleep and rest peacefully in God's shelter.
I'm Sir Walt-a-Lot, is what she did. She named me that for Sir Mix-a-Lot. I don't know why she named me after Sir Mix-a-Lot. I don't rap very often. I never said I liked it. Never mind. I'm married to Shayna's sister, Coach. Our kids are Eva Diva and Zachary. These were Shayna's pet names. These weren't nicknames. Nicknames are typically offered up by that person. Like everybody calls me Walt, even though my name is Walter. Pet names are created and used by one person. I think she gave the people in her life those names as a way to get closer to them, establishing a more direct connection. Shayna actually gave us nicknames for our pet names. Serena was Och for Ocho Burrito. Ava, most of the time, was just Eva. Zach was Zackers. She usually called me Sir Walt. Every time I'd see her somewhere, she'd give me the same greeting. Hey, Sir Walt. And it was a resounding, energetic greeting that always made me feel welcome, even my own home. I think she made a lot of people feel that way. I can hear her saying it now as I stand here. Serena recently recommended that I read a book that she had just finished. It's called The Marriage of Opposites. First thing I asked her was, what are you trying to tell me? But then I read it. It's really an amazing story about a Jewish community, St. Thomas, one of the Virgin Islands in the Caribbean, during the 1800s. And the main character learns that a granddaughter had been born was named after her. She says this: what you are called marks you and makes you who you are. As we heard, Shayna's name in Yiddish means beautiful. Her name clearly marked her and made her who she was. Shayna radiated a light and a warmth that was clear to everyone who came into contact with her. She blurred boundaries between business and personal. To her, everyone was a friend, someone for her to care for and invest in. It was her gift to us all. I think Shayna viewed me as an advisor of sorts, and I know she had many, many advisors. She asked my advice on different business startup ideas she'd come up with. She asked for my advice on buying and selling cars, on technology-related topics, lots of things. Beyond that, she would really dig in during our talks. She'd be intensely interested in my thoughts on so many things. I know she was like that with her. Sometimes it got awkward and maybe a little too honest, but I appreciated that those were real conversations, not small talk. I think she and I understood each other. At big events, I typically stay away from the crowd and keep more to myself. I know she appreciated that space I created away from the fray. She'd sit with me and talk about being anxious or uncomfortable. But she'd always get back out there. She had that ability and drive to engage with everyone there. I admired that ability she had. I wish I could be more like her in that way. Since her passing, I've been with the family on many occasions where everyone was trying to reconcile Shayna's life, come to terms with how it ended way too soon. I'm hoping today will help provide some closure to those thoughts. Here's a way to think about it. There's a story about a man who asked Hillel, one of the greatest rabbinical scholars in history, to teach him the entire Torah while the man stood on one leg. Hillel basically replied, treat others as you would want to be treated. This is the whole of the Torah, the rest is commentary. Relating this to Shayna, we could say, Shayna loved her family and her friends with her entire being, and was there for them constantly. She's at peace now, rest no longer matters. One more thought. In normal times, pre-2020, Serena would travel for work a couple times a year and go to visit friends on the state. There were two things I could count on when Serena moved to town. I'd get an invite from Sharon to her house for dinner with the kids. And I'd get a call or text from Shayna asking if she could drive Serena to the airport or pick her up, and she could come over and watch the kids so I could go out and do something. It sort of became like a dance with us. She offering, me politely declining. I'd usually say something like, "We'll just be hanging out at home and you're welcome to come over and be with us." And she would sometimes. Shayna just booked a flight to visit her friend in Arizona in December. I was thinking the other day that I won't get that call or text from Shayna this time. If it were at all possible, I'd let her know that I appreciated her thoughtfulness, her being there, and I will always consider Shayna my sister, and I will miss her.
Hi, I'm Shannon. I'm Shayna's mom. I'm getting good. You remember growing up that if a senior member of your family called you by your first, middle, and last name, that you were in trouble. I used all of her names a lot because Shayna heard her own drummer early on. If she was told to turn right, she always turned left. My Shayna was many things to many people. Just look around this room. She was a beautiful, shining, faceted girl, like a diamond, but way more complicated. Her greatest gift and joy was to help you and solve all of your problems. But she was unable to help or solve her own. She helped me in my store many times. My customers loved her suggestions and kindness and always spent way more than they intended when they came in that day. Shayna worked at Great Expectations dating service for many years and was the top sales agent. She even met her husband there after she convinced him to sign up for their pricey service. That was Shayna, really. She decided to take her sales skill to real estate. Every customer and client became, each and every client became a repeat customer and part of her extended family. If you were in her orbit, she would call routinely to quote unquote, just check in. Shayna never forgot you. On several occasions, I rode with her when she drove to each client's home and dropped off an apple pie or some random gift. She was welcome to each and every house with their arms wide open. Anyone who knew Shayna knew about her thing for cars. Her favorite was her Toyota 4Runner. After an exhaustive search online, she purchased a completely tricked out 4Runner from an older man in Florida. That poor man had no chance against Shayna. She really wanted that car. She told him that no one in Florida should have such a car, and that she, in Colorado, would get a good home. He ultimately agreed, and they agreed on the price, and he paid for shipping that darn car to Colorado. It was gold and had only 20,000 miles on it. She babied it, took care of it for 100,000 miles more, and then sold it for half what she originally bought it for at the start. That was Shayna. Shayna kept in touch with everyone she ever knew. The internet, texting, Zoom were invented for people like her, and her circle of contacts was huge. If you were looking for a chocolate chip cookie with purple sprinkles, Shayna knew someone who had them. That's how it was, all the time. She was just one of a kind. I can finally use all of her names without shouting at her. Shayna Lynn Wolf, please rest in peace.
I'm Todd. I'm Shayna's brother, married to Stephanie. This is a poem called The Final Flight. Don't grieve for me now, for now I'm free. I follow the path that God made for me. I took his hand when I heard this call. I turned my back and let it all, and left it all. I could not stand another day to laugh, to love, to work, to play. Task left undone must stay this way. I found that peace at the end of the day. If my parting has left a void, then fill it with remembered joy. Friendship shared, a laugh, a kiss. Ah yes, these things too. Excuse me, these things too I will miss. Be not burdened with times of sorrow. I wish you the sunshine of tomorrow. My life has been full. I savored so much. Good friends, good times, a loved one's touch. Perhaps my time seemed all too brief. Don't lengthen it now unto grief. Lift up your heart and share with me. God wanted me now. He set me free. Shayna and I had a special connection, just like we did, and we'll miss everything about Shayna, conversations, and her love for my kids, Walt and Serena's, really anyone that knew her. This week, making calls to her friends. It was one of the toughest things that Steph and I had. But just like in this room, she touched everybody in a different way with her love, her compassion, her peace. And now she has that peace.
Many years ago, I heard a quote attributed to F. Scott Fitzgerald that has always stuck with me, and it is, "The test of first-rate intelligence is the ability to hold two opposing ideas in mind at the same time and still function." This quote came to me again as I considered my little sister's life. Shayna made a doodle all the day truly personified this quote, the way she led her life. Her light and her dark, her tender-heartedness and her quick anger, her sun and her shadow, her intense joy and equally intense sorrow, her strength and her weakness, her loyalty and her unrecognizable stranger, her conservative dress and the 6-inch red stilettos we found in her closet last week. Her intense giving and generosity juxtaposed with an equally intense insatiability. Her love and her pain, her flat-out persistence and her utter exhaustion. Her sunshiny front of the house demeanor and her dark back of the house chaos and anxiety. Her curiosity and her insecurity. Her total acceptance of everyone and her total judgment. Her public persona and her private hell, her sage advice giving and her master level deflection, her champagne tastes and monster truck enjoyment, her quest for affirmation and fitting in, and her ability to give 0 Fs about anyone's opinion and live her life on her own terms. Curiously, one of the things I found at Shayna's house last week was a book. And if you know Shayna well, you know that she did not read, period. So to find a book on her desk about death and grieving literally took my breath away. The book is called The Beauty of What Remains. And man, that book was amazingly timed. A total unexpected and fantastic gift from Shayna. The net of this book to me was twofold. One, when you honestly look at someone's life, paradox is everywhere. It's how you make meaning of that paradox that could cause your suffering or provide a pathway to peace. The other lesson is that at the end of the day, what truly remains and matters are the gifts. She's left behind. So for me, I will continue to remember, focus, and exemplify Doodle's amazing God-given gifts, her heart, her pure soul, her generosity, her love, her friendship, acceptance, appreciation for the simple things, her light, her kindness, her generosity, her empathy, and her joy. In truth, as much as it hurts, today is really an amazing day for Shayna. I feel her presence all around. All of us here know that Shayna's biggest joy was being surrounded by family and friends. So right now, dear Doodle, my baby sister, at this moment, in front of this group of friends and loved ones, you can finally definitively know that for once and for all, you were loved, you mattered, and you can now joyfully, completely rest in peace.
Each of us has a name given to us by God, and one given to us by our father and mother. Each of us has a name given to us by our stature and our way of smiling, and given to us by our clothes. Each of us has a name given to us by the mountains, and given to us by our walls. Each of us has a name given to us by the planets, and given to us by our neighbors. Each of us has a name given to us by our sins, and given to us by our longing. Each of us has a name given to us by our enemies, and given to us by our love. Each of us has a name given to us by our fast days, and given to us by our craft. Each of us has a name given to us by the seasons of the year, and given to us by our blindness. Each of us has a name given to us by the sea, and given to us by our death. That is a poem by an Israeli woman named Zelda, and it's based on a beautiful quote from our midrash, from our tradition, that talks about our many names: given, earned, received. And as Sir Walt Alive told us, that is a part of the story that I got to hear about Shayna as I was learning about her life, that naming people was really important to her, and the names were mostly ridiculous. And that was a piece of her connection to the world, was having that informality with someone, and knowing that she had a name for you, and that was your tie. But I also think that she had a lot of names. Not just the names that we called her, or the names that she was given, but the names that she earned. And so I'm thinking today about the name that was given to her by her authenticity. When I sat with her family to hear the story of Shayna's life, they were very quick to tell me that she has been the same since the day she came home from the hospital. I don't often hear about projectile vomiting in my family intakes, but I did. And what I learned was that and her inability to sleep as a baby, the complexity of existing for Shayna started at day one and continued. But that there was authenticity to her struggle, that it was in every form of her life, whether she was a baby, whether she was an adult. Life was not always easy. for her. And certainly the shape changed, though her sleep did not, I understand. But she was authentic in who she was and in how she experienced life. I think she had a name that was given to her by her perseverance. For a person who maybe didn't have the easiest of minutes and moments and hours, she went back again, back again, back again. And that perseverance, that resilience is pretty unbelievable. Resilience comes from a French word, I think I learned this a while ago, that means to jump back, to bounce back. And it doesn't mean that there's no toil and there's no toll from the bouncing, but the ability to come back again, to try again, even in moments of failure or moments of almost. Shayna was really resilient and persevered. She tried again. She kept at it. She had a name that was given to her by her cars. And as we heard from Sharon from her mom, she really loved a couple of particular cars. But what I learned yesterday about her was that her cars, for her, meant a sense of control, but also maybe a sense of peace. If you've ever lived in a city where you have to commute in public transportation, there is something so peaceful about being in your own car. You control everything, the speed, the temperature, the music, the company. And that control, I think, offered an enormous amount of peace to Shayna. And that peace was something that she sought on a really regular basis. And so to find peace and to know where to find it, which I think she did, is a measure of her strength. To know that this is a place that I can go is a measure of strength. I think that in addition to the name that was given to her by those struggles that we talked about, there is a name that she earned in her moments of success and celebration. When Shayna found those moments of true peace, of having done it, of having passed her real estate exam, of having made connections and selling houses and buying her own car and having those moments of feeling like she did what she needed to do, that for her there was enormous success and celebration. And that was also authentic and beautiful. But most of all, I think that she had a name that was given to her by her kindness. I understand that she did not ever meet a stranger, and it didn't matter what somebody did or who they were, or what job they had or what they looked like. Shayna was ready to be a friend, was ready to reach out, was ready to remember things about them and come back to them. And I'm guessing that many of you are friends. And I understand that those friends became friends for life. And here they are, remembering all of her names and thinking about all of the moments that she earned and was given those names. And finally, she has a name that was given to her by love. By the love of her family for her and of her for her family. It is a beautiful thing to see the acceptance and the authenticity, back to that word, of who she was, how she was accepted in her family. And I think that the ability to have given her love and to have given her peace over the many years that she was seeking it was a truly beautiful relationship and a truly beautiful name. And so those names are not sister or cousin or daughter or aunt. They are the names I don't know that she had for each of you, the ridiculous names that have to do with burritos and wrappers, and the names that so many of you, I'm sure, earned from her as you built your relationships with her. And so may we remember her names, the easy ones and the hard ones, the ones that she gave to you and the ones that she earned. And in our tradition, when someone dies, we say our memorial prayer, which we will say at graveside today, the mourner's cottage. And before we say that prayer, we often have the opportunity to say the name of a loved one out loud. We believe that it matters to say it and to hear it, to speak their name, which means to speak their truth and their legacy into the world, because that name and all that comes with it, that name mattered. May Shayna's many names continue to be spoken. Her names for you and yours for her. May they continue to matter. May they hold for you the power of her love for you. And may her name bring you enormous. With that, I ask you to please rise as you are able. We chant our memorial prayer. El Malei Rachamim, Shochein Bamromi, Amtzei Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanfei Hashchina, Im Kedoshim Utehorim Kezohar, Harakia Mazirim, and Nishmat Shayna Basharon, Shahalacha Leolamah. Bal harachamim yasireha, v'seter knafav leolami. V'yitzror v'yitzror achayim, et nishmata. Adonai hu nachalata, v'tanuach v'shalom al mishkava, v'nomar amen. God of mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and pure whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold Shayna Lynn Wolf, Shayna Bat Sharon close to you forever, so that her soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May she find a home with you. May she rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. A brief announcement before we conclude. We are going from here to Mount Nebo Cemetery to bury Shayna, after which you will be invited to a reception at Stephanie's home, 6233 Columbia Drive, Highlands Ranch, Colorado, 80130.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll ask you to remain in your places as we escort the casket and the family to their cars. If you'd like to join us at the cemetery for burial, we do not have an escorted procession today. So on the tables, you may pick up directions to the cemetery. You're also welcome to follow their hearse. If you happen to do so, we must remind you, since we're not a procession, to follow all traffic laws, all stop signs, all stop lights. If you happen to run into the family, if they need to use the restroom, grab a drink of water or something, please be mindful they do need to get back to their car as quickly as possible so they can get on their way to the cemetery. If we can invite the pallbearers forward at this time.
Adonai ro'i lo echsar, v'no teshayar b'tzeini, almei menuchot yanach aleini, nafshi yeshoveh, yancheni v'magalit tzedek leman shemo, gam ki elech b'geit zalmavet, lo ira ra ki ata imati, shivtecha mishantecha hema yenachaluni, ta'aroch lefanai shulchan neged zorai, Ishanta b'shem Ramshi, kosi revaya. Achtov v'chesed yirtzuni, kol yamei chayai. V'shavti b'beit Adonai, le'orech yami.
You're welcome.